Caution, this game contains scenes of violence and gore, as well as depictions of criminal acts. These acts are strictly punished by law. Please do not attempt to imitate them. This game also contains themes of sexual violence and self-harm. This game is a work of fiction. Any relationship to real persons, groups, places, or crimes is coincidental. Oh yeah, and I am now on the community of Zero Patch. I've learned about it in the middle of playing Silent Sky, but I said fuck it, I'll finish that, and then we'll move to the community of Zero Patch, you know? It'll be like my own little way of having, I don't know, something. Yeah, I really don't give a shit about this. Like, you know how a girl having her panties completely exposed is epic, but the implication that she's going no pan is much harder? It's like that. Oh, fuck! They done fucked it up now! It wasn't ISA. It wasn't ISA before. I suggest you sing. Let song flow from your lips. Singing is an act that exists in reality. However, pouring your thoughts into song is an act born from delusion. Singing allows these two sides to coexist, and you can share such a beautiful coalescence with many. That is why you should sing. Whose eyes are those eyes? Without waiting for a response from Nerdhart, he logged out of the chat room. A small sigh came from beyond the wall, followed by a light knocking sound. That the occupant from the room beside him had stood up from their seat, and before long, the door to his cubicle, room 37, was open. Wait, what? The girl didn't smile. Her expression remained grim as she took hold of the handles of his wheelchair. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 hold on. Nerdhart failed to reply. From this, the boy concluded that Nerdhart must have clicked one of the links he had pasted again and again into the chat window. It might have been strenuous from Nerdhart, but it was something that he had to show him at all costs. Are you frightened? Are you frightened? Don't worry, that's good. That fear is what puts you on the path to awakening. Speaking those words to himself, he sent his final message. Whose eyes are those? I'm waiting for response. Were you able to contact the other you? Yes. His answer to the girl's question, which had been asked rather abruptly, was brief and concise. Still, being well attuned to the boy, the girl was able to sense a hint of tension in his tone. What happened? I was not the only one to come into contact with Nishijo Takumi. It seems he may be under surveillance. I see. She didn't speak another word. She simply pushed his wheelchair to the front of the cafe in silence. Niggas. Whoa, that wasn't here before. It's just a coincidence. Okay, so the game's like, I, okay, you might, by answering yes. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get the bad ending today. I'm making it up, it's all in my head. The Nugent killer is somewhere in this school. Whoever wrote this is trying to provoke me. I should definitely erase it. What's more, I've blurred out Sedaton's name. Fuck! Oh, she's naked. Unzipped her miniskirt. Shinsen Station of the Inokashira line was only one stop from Shibuya, with it taking only about a minute to arrive there by train. Wait, hold on. Okay. Due to the earthquake, all the lights had gone out. Carrying Ozuhara Kozue's body on her back, Senoi stepped foot to the platform. No need to buy a ticket, not a single staff member. Already read all this shit.
やっと見つけた。
Uh-oh, this isn't right. Shoulder to shoulder, one was a tall man wearing an expensive suit. His whole body exuded an aura of refinement. He had excellent posture, and a relaxed smile rested on his lips. The other was a homeless man clad in filthy rags. His hair was unkempt and shaggy, and his face was covered in stubble. The man's head hung low, rendering his expression difficult to accurately discern. Their appearances contrasted violently, but the two men did nothing but stand silently on the dim, empty station platform. Senna felt nothing but raw hatred toward the both of them, Norose Genichi and Hatono Ise. Even if she wanted to forget about them, she would never been able to. The ones who killed my mother and my sister, here to say hello to me. A long time ago, her mother and her little sister had met their gruesome ends right before her eyes. And the people before her now were the very people who had killed them. It was never my intent, Senna. It was never my intent, Senna. With his head still hung low, the homeless man Hatsuno let out a desolate murmur. I tried to stop the experiment, but once the gears had begun to turn, I was no longer able to stop them alone. This man. Norose said nothing. His composed attitude remained unmoving. This man, he was the one who ordered the experiment's continuation. I never desired what came afterward. The fault lies with this man, Norose. Please understand this, Senna. Senna's repugnance billowed as she listened to the words of his repentance. You let my mom and my sister die. That is an undeniable truth. If you regret it so badly, why did you run? To protect the world. Bullshit! I cannot say I admire this disobedience towards your father, miss. It was the first time Norose had spoken. Indeed, your family meeting a tragic end was the result of the order I had issued. We already collected a sufficient amount of data. The experiment was truly fruitful. Fruitful? Asena swiftly reel-booted the D-sword she held in her hands, resulting in the shockwave stirred her long black hair. Kill him, Senna. He is the source of everything. I don't need you to tell me that. Senna had already kicked powerfully off the platform. Without brandishing her sword, she closed the distance. A phenomenal display of her explosive power. Her target, Norose Genichi. She mowed him down with her D-sword. Even the air was torn to shreds. Norose's head tore free and flew away from its source. Senna followed, and then it turned into Ozuhara. Oh, okay, well. Did I say Ozuhara? It had been a man wearing a suit. Well, I mean, I knew this was going to happen because, you know, it happened to the two dudes in the good ending, in quotes. It had been a suit where he had been, oh, whatever. Anyways, her dad's dead, which means she's going to get shot. He turned her face in return, his bearded... The very next instant, Hatsuno took on the face of a man Senna did not recognize. His age, his face, his aura, they all greatly differed from her father's. Senna was overwhelmed with confusion. He took another unblinking look at the head and she had just severed. After tracing an arc as it flew, it splattered blood upon where it struck the concrete. It was her father's face. It was her father's head. Senna could not look away. An illusion made by a delusion, realizing that Senna's breathing grew shallow and ragged. You know, Senna-chan, the man who was supposed to be your father, the man who was now a completely different person, spoke Senna's name in a far too friendly way. What you did just now, doesn't it make you pretty much the same as your old man? It was a result she had longed for throughout these past 6 months. It should have been. It should have been, and yet Senna was assailed by a fierce inner turmoil. Her father, who had been reduced to just a head, had his eyes trained directly on Senna. Decapitating your own father. Now that's gnarly.
とさ
Still not comprehending why she was experiencing such psychological shock, Senna heard something tear deep inside her ears. I heard a voice. A scream of Senna's mind. A scream which cursed reality. A scream which emulated madness. I followed that cry to the Shinshin station. By the time I got there, it was already too late. When I set foot, the faint smell of blood hung in the air. Kozue was lying against the wall unconscious, and there on this platform, Senna sunk to the ground, her back facing me. Her head was pointed down, and her long hair was covering her face. I couldn't see her expression. Right beside her was a headless body. It then occurred to me that the round object laying a few meters away was the head that had been once attached to it. It was Hatano-san. The moment I realized that, I bit my lip hard. Oh man, talk about a stroke of luck! A man was standing on the tracks, contrasting heavily with the suit he was wearing. He had a rucksack on his back. A harsh mechanical noise was emanating from it. Suwa Mamoru, Chiba, a detective from the Metropolitan Police Department's investigation unit. MPDID. DID. This wasn't the first time I'd run into him, and I knew exactly what he'd done. You see, I originally came here to get rid of these annoying-ass Hatanos. But look who decided to crash the party. What's up, Nishijo-kun? I really appreciate tossing yourself into the line of fire like that. I was told to grab you if I ran into you. So here we are.
誰に
By who? That one's top secret. He smiled a flippant smile, one that was somewhat reminiscent of Detective Bond's. But there was one key difference. Detective Bond's smile had always been just an act meant to throw people off or rile them up. When it came to Suwa, however, this sly smile was who he truly was.
あんたは
Hey, asshole.
野呂瀬の居場所を
You know where to
知ってる
find Norose?
西条
Oh, come on, Nishijo-kun. Suwa heaved a sigh as he took his head in an exaggerated manner. Would it kill you to throw a bit more respect my way? I'm older than you, you know?
の方が年上っすよ
With my eyes still trained on Suwa, I cautiously jumped down from the platform onto the tracks. Senna was still motionless, so I ended up effectively shielding her back
バン
to
っていう人を殺
you.
したの
You were the one who
あん
killed
ただ
Bond.
だから
Yeah, so?
刑事のくせに
You're a detective.
殺すなん
Yeah,
て
you go as low as to kill people. That's real rich coming from you. I gripped my D-sword
あん
tightly,
たみたいなやつに
as if I'd ever be polite
使う義
to a bastard like you.
ないよあのさ
Like I said,
お前に言わ
that's real fucking rich coming from you. Even from this distance, it was clear to see. The smile on Sua's face had disappeared. You're just as much of a murderer as I am.
違うとは
And no, I won't let you call bullshit. You killed Hazuki Shino.
死のを殺した俺は今
You have no idea how much I'd love to tear you to fucking shreds right now. Hazuki Shino, the nurse who had been the real Nujin culprit. She and Suwa were both disciples of the Cosmic Church of Divine Light. Was that all? I gulped audibly. For the sake of Divine Light's salvation, I'll restrain myself. But in exchange,
俺が責任
I will make absolutely sure
心を殺し
to murder your heart and mind. I attempted to brandish my D-sword, but it was obvious I wouldn't be able to do anything. It was just a reflex, and like I expected, I wasn't able to do anything at all. I found myself in a dimly lit room. In that room was a single man talking to a much older man through a large screen.
諏訪君君と葉
I
月
prepared a form of training I'd like for you and Hazuki to under Hazuki-kun. See, I know this because of Uma Musume. Even though Hazuki is a man, is a woman, he's calling her Hazuki-kun, not out of in a less casual, you're my friend who's a dude way, but in a I have superiority way. And so kun is used in that form, and it's a bit more archaic, but it's like kun is used in a genderless way to describe a woman because he has power over them. And that's why Tiamapra O and another Uma Musume call you fucking Agnes Tachyon. That's why they call you Trainer Kun, even if you're male or female. Fuck.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
何なりと
Whatever you ask.
人を
I
殺し
want you to kill.
相手は誰です
Who is it I'll be killing, sir?
相手が
There's
何
no
者かに
particular reason regarding who.
と申し
Humbly, sir, may I hear more?
特に決まり
Let
は
us
ない
say there are no exact rules on the matter. Simply obey the orders of us whom to kill and how to kill them.
我らが
To
進め
bring
ている
about the
プロジェクト
completion
ノ
of
アを
Project
完成
Noah,
させるた
it
め
is crucial that we enact a psychological attack upon the boy known as Nishijo
心理
Takumi.
的揺さぶりをかける必要があるのだ
揺さぶり
An attack, sir.
恐怖を与え
You must instill in him the
しかし
greatest
その
of
少年の
terrors.
秘めた
But
力は
beware,
強
for a
大だ
boy harbors a
直接
frightening
的な
power.
行動は
Direct engagements will require extreme caution.
故に連続猟奇殺人
Therefore, I ask that you create a string of abominable incidents, a set of grotesque serial killings.
たった
Murdering people just for that?
不問か
Having doubts?
シノも
Is Shino
そ
to
の
take
修行に
part in
参加
this
しなけれ
training?
ばなりませんか
当然だ
Why, of course. This is all to
それは
build
信仰の
our
理想郷を
utopia of
築く
divine
ため
light.
であり
You two shall bring about the salvation of the
同時に
divine
君たちに信仰
light.
の救いをもたらすだろう
そういうことで
If
あ
that
る
is you would command, then it shall be done.
時に
Incidentally,
葉月
Hazuki-kun
君は
has blessed us with a
お腹に
child in her
金を授
womb.
かったな
Pray tell, how soon is the delivery?
あと2ヶ月ほど
2 months, sir.
その子
Offer it forth. Offer your child so that we may bathe in the salvation of the divine light.
殺せ
Do you wish for me to kill
とおっ
it?
しゃいます
聖なる
It is a holy sacrifice. Offer your child, and you both will bring about the great salvation of the divine light.
大いなる信仰の救いがもたらされるだろう
大いなる
The great salvation of the divine light.
かしこまりまし
With
た
pleasure, sir.
すべて
All will be as
そのまま
glorious
に
founder commands.
きっと
I know Shino will be similarly pleased. May the
信仰
divine
の
light
救い
save
あれ
us. Suddenly, an insanely powerful wind blew against me. It pushed me backward, hard, nearly knocking me over. I tried desperately to brace myself against it. However, my body didn't do what I asked. Instead, my body curled up into a ball on the spot. My body wouldn't listen to me. It moved by itself. It was like my body wasn't my own. Before I knew it, my surroundings had gone completely dark. When I looked below, I saw the nightscape spreading out before me. If I didn't know any better, I could have easily mistaken all the lights as skies full of stars. Then I realized that I was standing somewhere ridiculously high up. Beside me were 4 men and women I'd never met. No, I knew one of them, Yua. For some reason, though, she wasn't wearing her glasses. No, that wasn't Yua. It was Mia, Yua's younger twin sister, who should have died a month ago. Which meant this was the roof of Cornelius Tower. My body wasn't my own. I was wearing a school uniform I didn't recognize. My body was brawnier than my own. And when I saw that there were 4 other people huddled around on the ground, wailing loudly as the tears poured down their faces, it led me to guess exactly what was happening. This body that my consciousness had invaded belonged to one of the 5 victims who had died in the first Nujin case, the group dive. Through no will of my own, my field of vision ever so slowly panned toward the helipad. Shogun had filmed the video, so he should have been somewhere. There, Shogun was wearing a Darth Spider helmet on his head, with a black cloak draped over his body. When Shogun had cornered me at Overfront, he'd been wearing something similar. But was this guy actually Shogun? No. His legs were slightly peeking out from his black cloak. He was very clearly wearing slacks. In addition to this, her legs were thick, like that of a healthy adult male's. They weren't skinny, pathetic legs that belonged to Shogun, to Nishijo Takumi. No bones protruded from them. And when I looked closer, I even realized that his sitting height was completely different. The cloak kept them hidden, but his shoulders looked fairly broad. At the very least, the man wasn't Nishijo Takumi. He wasn't carrying a video camera. Suddenly, from the darkness spreading out behind the fake Shogun, I heard footsteps, dragging footsteps, and not just one set of them. It wasn't a hallucination. The strange footsteps belonged to many, many people. There had to be several dozen unknown entities lurking in the darkness. The footsteps hadn't been in the video that had been uploaded on YouTube. Not to mention there shouldn't have been any way for this many people to have gained access to the helipad. Then what the hell was this sound? The four others beside me all continued to wail in grief. Through no will of my own, my body let out a similar cry and then began to tremble. Something was coming closer. If I was in a low-budget horror movie, these dragging footsteps would have been zombies. Zombies with both arms hanging down limply in front of them, their decaying bodies slowly swaying as they walked. But that was just in the movies. In reality, and especially in 21st century Shokyo, there was no way a horde of zombies could possibly show up like that. But if that was the case, then what were they? My heart felt like it was going to seize up in terror. I wanted to look away, but the owner of the body I invaded refused to do so. Finally, the unknown entities began to emerge from the darkness. They choked all remaining space on the helipad, sealing off our escape route. I wasn't sure if it was right to call it anticlimactic, but the ones who appeared were perfectly normal people. They wore suits, school uniforms, parkas, and they were of different ages and sexes, but they were all people you'd expect to find walking around Shibuya at night. Save for one thing. Every one of the nearly 100 people there was gripping some sort of bladed object. None of them said a word, nor even tried to. All that could be heard was their raspy, nasal breaths pooling together into an abysmal cacophony. For some reason, I couldn't see their expressions very well. It was like their faces were made of paint that had been blurred by water. Their faces were blurry and disfigured. Were their faces actually deformed? Or was my sight itself the problem? I didn't know. They were sluggishly yet steadily coming toward us. They were like robots that had been programmed with a single mission. I thought that perhaps the fake Shogun was ordering them around, but that didn't seem to be the case. Every once in a while, he would move his wheelchair forward. One of the 5 people had been all cornered up now, and they had nowhere to run. In order to escape from the 180-meter-high rooftop, they had no choice but to dive. Grasping their blades, the mob grew closer. Closer and closer, little by little. Eventually, they were within reaching distance. And yet, even in those final moments, they all stayed completely silent. As well as this, even though they drew nearer and nearer, they didn't make any attempts to jump on any of the victims. But this strange behavior only served to make them all the more terrifying. Terrifying enough to make me think, I need to get out of here, even if it means I have to jump. Whose eyes are those eyes? I heard an unexpected voice, the voice of the real Shogun, Nishijo Takumi. However, I hadn't heard it from the man wearing the Darth Spider helmet, but from overhead. And it seemed like I hadn't been the only one to hear it. As if they rehearsed it, the 5 cornered people all stood up, joined hands with one another, and looked up at the night sky. Naturally, only the starry sky spread across the night. Shogun was nowhere to be found. Mind reading. Whose eyes are those eyes? My field of vision slowly panned, and then I saw something strange. Even though the nightscape should have been the only thing spreading out below me, I saw a long flight of stairs reaching downward. It led right to the roof of the adjacent building, not Science Building, which was across the Metropolitan Highway, but the building nestled up close to the Cornelius Tower. A building nestled close to Cornelius Tower. The fact didn't make any sense. No such building exists in reality. Even so, the 5 people held no suspicions that the Totoro case was delusionary. All they thought about was how they'd been saved by it. These thoughts, these emotions were conveyed distinctly to me, and then, only with them in mind, they stepped forward. Hand in hand. They had yet to let go even once. It was how the group dive had ended. None of them had possessed any desire to dive. So when the staircase that had been so convinced was real disappeared, the filling of empty air shocked them, and as they fell, they screamed from the deepest of their hearts. Falling. Wind pressure violently assaulted my body. The shrieks of the girl next to me emulated as howls of terrifying beasts. She closed my hands so tightly, her nails dug into my flesh. It took time for us to fall those 180 meters, but it felt like an eternity. The dark earth rushed towards us with incredible speed. Our surroundings were so dark. I started to hallucinate about falling into it. Then, the bodies of 5 people collided with the earth. With a sickening crunch, they were pulverized. The pain struck me without expecting it. A single blow led me straight to death. The impact felt like my entire body had exploded and then ground into a fine powder from the inside out. I felt the sensation of my heart violently contracting from the shock, and then my consciousness was severed. My eyes were first open, and a new scene burst forth in front of me. I was walking down to Tamagawa Dori. My body was completely intact, yet the sensation of crashing into the ground remained distinct. Through no will of my own, I was walking down the street as if it were any other day. This body was more in shape than my own. It wasn't me. I had a terrible feeling about this. Suddenly, I noticed a strange man walking toward me, and when I saw him, I was forced to acknowledge that my terrible feeling had been warranted. The man passed me. He was wearing a fairly normal suit, but on his head he had a Darth Spider helmet. It was all too surreal. There wasn't anyone else around. I wanted to run away as soon as possible, and yet, despite my wishes, the owner of the body my consciousness had invaded looked over their shoulder at the man he had just passed. Darth Spider was right behind me. He was so close I could almost feel his breath. And then, bursting out of my blind spot, his fist flew straight into my stomach. All the strength left my body, and my vision went black. Not long after I lost consciousness, I began feeling intense searing pain spreading throughout my abdomen. When I opened my eyes, I was in an operating room. Wearing only white scrubs, Hazuki Shino was standing in front of me. Her scrubs were wide open, revealing her bloodied abdomen. Even though her face was sickly pale, she looked at me with a gentle smile. In her hand was a scalpel she slowly laid against my stomach. She applied some pressure, and with a slight ripping sound, a small incision appeared on my skin. Blood spurted from the wound, dancing through the air before landing on Hazuki Shino's face. And yet, despite that, the same bright smile stayed plastered on her face. I watched in horror and pain as she slowly sliced me open. I had seen this scene once before, back when I had read Hazuki's memories. The pregnant man case. The pain in my stomach was becoming unbearable. Screaming and sobbing, I tried to escape somehow by thrashing around, but my limbs were all fastened to the bed. I was unable to move. Any movement would lead to the pain in my abdomen growing far more intense. May the divine light save you, sir. With her hand resting upon my cleanly sliced open skin, Hazuki began poking in the gushing wound with her fingers. That alone pierced me with enough agony to shatter my mind. I could very clearly feel the sensation of her fingers writhing around inside me. And then, just as I had seen in her memories, Hazuki forcefully widened the wound from both sides. The sensation of skin and flesh tearing. The lack of anesthesia left the pain raw and unfiltered, causing me, along with the owner of the body, to lose consciousness, only to be woken up immediately after by the overwhelming pain. While Hazuki kept forcefully opening the wound all at the same. The details no longer mattered to me, such as where it hurt, or where specifically on my body the pain was erupting from. I hallucinated all my nerve endings with being pierced with searing hot needles. I passed out again, but I couldn't escape. The pain mercilessly forced my conscience back awake. I let my body writhe in pain. I found myself thinking that if it would release me from the suffering, I would be willing to bite my tongue off But just as I thought that, I saw something. There in Hazuki's hand was a blood-soaked fetus, something that served only to make her smile all the more revolting. This woman was well and truly insane. She took the corpse of the fetus she had removed from her own body and then plunged it deep inside my abdomen. Her hand and the hand of the fetus she was gripping tightly in it, shoved inside my organs, gouged out my flesh, and gnawed deeper and deeper into me. I began to vomit blood, but even though it threatened to suffocate me, gargling screams rose from my drowning throat without end. Perhaps due to the pain overloading my brain, my head felt strangely foggy. And yet, despite that fogginess, the pain refused to get any more bearable, and I began to comprehend less and less of what was happening. Pain was all that ruled my mind. Hazuki then withdrew her hand from my stomach and nodded in satisfaction. Then, as if pretending to be a patient, she spoke a soft few words. "You've done so well." But the very second she finished speaking, she suddenly lost consciousness and her body collapsed to the floor. Around the same time, someone else entered the operating room. The sound of his shoes reverberated throughout it, but I had no interest in whoever it was. This whole thing I was focused on was continuing my bawling and screaming, unable to feel anything but agony. Seeing the unnatural expansion of my stomach, I fell into a panic. Along with the pain, I began to feel an itchiness. It was itchy, really, really itchy. I wanted to scratch it, but my hands were tied to the bed, so I couldn't. Suddenly, a shadow obstructed my view. It was Darth Spider appearing from almost nowhere. He picked up Hazuki in his arms, exited the operating room with her, then came back alone a few moments later. He was carrying a sewing needle and some nylon thread. What was he thinking? I didn't know until he slowly began to stitch together the wound on my stomach. The pain was practically nothing compared to the pain of having a foreign object shoved inside me, nor the agony of having my flesh ripped open. Darth Spider's sewing was incredibly sloppy. Even a grade schooler could have done better. Every time he pulled at the fishing line, it chafed against the chasms he'd opened in my skin. The itchiness grew more intense. An unbearable itchiness. An itchiness that seemed to well up from deep inside me. Itchy, itchy, itchy. I wanted to scratch it. If he'd just let me, I wouldn't even mind if I died. The tingling itch combined with the pain. And yet, even more than the pain, the itch threatened to drive me completely insane. Due to my mental state, it took me a while to notice that the scenery changed once again. I felt a slight relief from the pain and the itchiness, but the sensation hadn't completely disappeared. Even now, as I stumbled through Shinsen, I felt an itch at the center of my body. But along with that itch, I felt the sensation of a foreign object in my abdomen, as well as the pain of the needle weaving it in and out of my body. They all remained as distinct, lingering discomforts due to my tormenting mind, even now. I was on an unlit, rarely used road. As I walked down it, I saw a figure coming toward me. The road was so narrow we would have had to turn sideways to even pass each other. When I saw what the man looked like, it was him, dressed as Darth Spider. We passed each other. Darth Spider didn't give any kind of reaction. My heart was beating out of my chest, and then something surfaced in my mind. An incredibly compulsive urge, one that made no sense for me to feel. A crusty old fuck had been hitting on my girl. It pissed me off like you wouldn't believe. I wanted to kill him. That extremely abrupt feeling drove me forward. The face of my girl was foggy in my memories. I couldn't remember her very well, to the point where I wasn't even sure if she existed in the first place. And yet the crusty old fuck who'd been hitting on my girl was crystal clear in my mind. I'd seen his face before. He was the victim of the crucifixion case. My memory launched forward, placing me in a dark, narrow alley. An alley I knew all too well, the scene of the crucifixion. Right in front of me was the victim of that case. He was a middle-aged man, and my hands were wrapped tightly around his neck. His body convulsed violently, bubbles frothed from his mouth, and his eyes rolled into the back of his head. Upon learning what it felt like to have someone's life disappear in my hands, I went slightly cold. Eventually, the man stopped moving. When I, Komeda, the perpetrator of this case, confirmed he was dead, I released my hands from his neck and let him collapse to the ground. I gave him a single parting kick in the side, then immediately went to leave. I heard a voice when I turned around. The man who was supposed to be dead was getting up. Eyes still rolled into the back of his head, and then he reached for me. With a yelp, I punched him, knocking him to the ground. But even though his movements were sluggish, he kept getting back up no matter how many times I hit him. I grabbed his neck again, just as I'd done earlier, but this time with even more force. I wrung my hands tightly around his neck. I put all the strength I had into my grip, applying both enough pressure to snap the bones in his neck. He stopped moving again. This time I put my ear up to his mouth, and I made absolutely sure he wasn't breathing. I let him drop. I watched his body for a while. And then somehow, the man who should have died twitched violently and began rising back to his feet. The expression on his face was one clearly fitting of a dead man's and didn't change even slightly as he moved. Rising up from the ground, he started coming toward me. As I stumbled back in fear, I stepped on something. Startled, I looked down at my feet. A large number of cross-shaped stakes were scattered across the street. I had to stop him from moving any more. I had to drive a stake into the monster that I was facing. If I didn't, I'd be screwed. Overwhelmed by the impending danger, I shoved the man against the wall before he could finish getting up. I picked up a stake. And before I knew it, I was gripping a hammer in my other hand. Once again, I found myself in the operating room, but it wasn't the man-child case. Despite knowing that the pain from the experience, coupled with the sensation of a foreign object in my stomach, continued to torture me, it ground away at each of my nerve endings. I could see two figures in my field of vision. They were both still as they could be, staring in my direction with bated breath. One of them was Darth the Spider. The other was Hazuki Shino. Her scrubs weren't soaked in blood this time, which led me to believe that this was a different case than the man-child one. I was lying in a bed, and a needle for an IV was embedded in my arm. However, nothing was being injected to me. The liquid in the tube was flowing backwards. The liquid was blood. My blood, the blood that circulated within this body, was being sucked out through the IV. And at the end of the tube, there was only an extremely dirty bucket. It was filled to the brim with blood. Blood continued to fall into the bucket. Drip, drip, drip. My head felt fuzzy. I was incredibly dizzy. I was assailed by an intensely peculiar sensation, one where a pleasant feeling like my consciousness was floating far away, intermixed with the pain and itchiness from the leftover man-child case. Then, as if showing it off to me, Darth Spider and Hazuki tenderly embraced each other like lovers. As the two supported one another, Hazuki's face couldn't have looked happier. I couldn't understand how she could make a face like that, while in the middle of creating the dried-up corpse from a vampire case. But before I could think about why, I couldn't understand it. Pain grew far more intense. My throat was sapped of all its moisture. My vision gradually darkened. My consciousness slowly grew thinner, until eventually it evaporated completely. I then realized it was a vicarious experience. I was being forced to experience the series of the Nugent murders vicariously. I was facing the pain of each case, the fear, one by one. That was true, then there were still 3 remaining. Realizing that, my despair pulled me down even deeper.
先生、
Doctor. Someone called out to me, and I came back to myself. I should have been in the operating room, but I was standing in the hallway of some
高島
hospital.
先生、
Dr. Takashina! Unsurprisingly, through no will of my own, my body turned around. Behind me was Hazuki Shino, accompanied by a somewhat somber
お家
expression.
でご相
Excuse me,
談があるんです
doctor.
が
I would like a word with you.
ここだと人目
We'd
がつき
attract
ますから
attention out here, so please follow me. Her voice apologetic. Hazuki entered an examination room. My mind screamed, "Don't go," at Dr. Takashina. Unsurprisingly, my voice didn't reach him. It was currently after hours at the hospital, so no one else was in the exam room. Hazuki walked steadily toward the center of it. Dr. Takashina followed her without even the slightest doubt. And then she abruptly stopped. Just as I wondered what she was doing, a man wearing something black on his head leapt out from the darkness. I reeled back, startled, only for the man to shove something akin to a piece of gauze over my mouth. And just like that, my consciousness was stolen away. An ear-piercing noise rang through my head. My skull was vibrating violently. But it wasn't just vibrating, it was being shaved to dust. I felt that sensation incredibly clearly. The sound died down, and when I opened my eyes, I was on the operating table again. Like a collection of numerous eyes, many lights bore down on me from the ceiling. They bore down on me brilliantly, illuminating my face.
頭蓋骨が外れました
Your cranium has been
先生
removed, doctor.
まあ
Ah,
先生の硬膜
doctor, your dura mater is so pretty. In a thoroughly enchanted tone, Husky said those words, picked up a pair of scissors, and used them to cut away the solid membrane covering my brain. I felt the sensation directly, and immediately following it, I was seized by a sickening, almost frustrating feeling. Oh. Or rather, Dr. Takashina hadn't known that Husky had the ability to perform brain surgery. As a result of this, my mind erupted with surprise, followed by me noticing my body was incapable of moving due to the anesthesia. Hazuki wasn't alone in the operating room. The man wearing black from before, Darth Spider, was there too. But he said nothing. He simply stood in place, not moving a muscle.
人は脳死状態でも人工呼吸器なしで1週間以上生きたっていう事例があるんです。ご存知ですか？
Without losing the gentle smile on her face, Hazuki whispered something strange in my ear.
それってつまり脳がなくてもしばらくは生きていられるっていうことですよね。先生はどれくらい生きられるかしら？
I shuddered. An unfathomable terror rose up from within me. Hazuki held a spoon in front of my eyes, only for it to leave my vision soon after.
高階先生に信仰の救いあれ。
That warning, I felt an object being forced into my head. Not inside my head in the sense that it was really happening. Something had literally been forced inside my head. I felt the sensation of something entering me and then moving out. There was no pain. However, it was more than enough to fill me with disgust and terror. Ugh! Hazuki shook off a piece of something onto the tray sitting beside me. Only moving my eyes, I looked over to try to see what it was. It was a beautiful pink color, but had been smashed into a pulp. It reminded me of a soft salmon roe. Realizing it was my brain, my sense of dread peaked. I pleaded with her. Please stop. Hazuki.
救いあれ。
But Hazuki's hand didn't stop moving. Instead, her expression turned into one of pure ecstasy. Her cheeks were stained with a bright scarlet as she dug through my brain, taking more of it with every scoop. Suddenly, I was having fun. I wanted to laugh. Suddenly, I harbored an intense hatred. Suddenly, I felt Suddenly, a furious lust burned within me, rising up and constricting my chest. She stirred my brain, stirring my emotions along with it. Ah, ah. Emotions different to what I myself felt upboiled within inside me. Because of these emotions, my mind, heart, and soul were drifting away from the consciousness known as me, forcing me to confront the ambiguity of my own existence. As the mental rape that sought to deny my own existence tore my mind to shreds, I found my way walking under a railway overpass. If I went off to the case order, and this time it would be the finger food case. As I'd expected what would happen, my body was now a woman's. I was incredibly hungry. Perhaps the victim had been on a diet or something. I crossed paths with a man in a Darth Spider costume once again. Everywhere I went, he would show up. Considering how much his appearance stood out, I wondered why the police or the mass media hadn't gotten anything among them at all. It was the first time Darth Spider had said anything. He pointed at my right hand as he spoke. It was a surreal spectacle. For some reason, I was holding 5 bare chicken skewers, each one sticking out from the gaps between my fingers. Warm-looking steam rose from them, as did the juicy aroma of cooked meat. Both things further stimulated my appetite. Saliva overflowed from my mouth. Unable to wait another second, I took a bite. A sharp pain shot through my finger, but I couldn't stop chewing. I'd never had such incredible, delicious chicken in my life. Tons of juices escaped from the meat, dribbling down on the pavement below. It was delectable. It was to die for. In the blink of an eye, I had cleaned the skewers completely. Before I knew it, Darth Spider had disappeared. But it didn't matter much to me. I didn't even care about that strange man at all. I wanted to keep eating. My stomach cried out for more food. The fingers on my right hand throbbed with pain, but my hunger easily overrode it. Once again, I looked at my right hand. That's when I realized I hadn't just been holding chicken skewers. I'd been carrying a large slab of meat. Glorious protein was still fastened to the bone, with the dripping juices staining my sleeve of my blouse a dark shade of red. When had I gotten my hands on this? How long had I had it for? That question, too, quickly became unimportant when faced with my overwhelming hunger. I sank my teeth into the meat with all the strength I could muster. Excruciating pain. I ripped a chunk off, chewed it, tasted it, then gulped it down. The meat was tender and it carried a fair amount of fat. I bit deeper. Both my hands and the area around my mouth were greasy with fat, but I didn't care. I'd never experienced such incredible flavor before. I tore the meat off the bone. Fat melted and gushed out my mouth. It hurt. For some reason, it hurt so bad I thought I would die, but I kept chewing. Compared to how large the bone was, there wasn't a lot of meat on it. It didn't take long for me to eat it up. Eat it up. Finally, I licked all the meat remaining off the tiny scraps of flesh that were clinging to the bone. Every piece I set free, I sucked on, savoring the taste. Ugh. 5 slender bones protruding from the ends weren't too hard. If I wanted to, I could bite them off without much trouble. I gnawed on the bones. A fierce pain ripped through me, a pain so intense I nearly collapsed on the spot. Tears streaming down my face, I gleefully slipped up all the remaining juices that were oozing from inside the bones. I tore free one of the bones. The intense stimulus led me to crumple to the ground, rolling the bone around my mouth. When I went to swallow it, the bone got stuck in my throat and I could no longer breathe. My legs swung around uncontrollably, kicking every which way. But before I knew it, a string had been wrapped around my ankles, stopping them in place. I could no longer move freely. Darth Spider was standing in front of me. Writhing in agony, the exposed bones of my right hand struck the ground. The impact sent violent, ripping waves throughout my entire body, and I immediately pissed myself. and I would never open my eyes again. I opened my eyes in a dim back alley. The scenery was a little different from before. I was walking down the alley while leaning on a male delinquent's shoulder. His face was horribly beaten and he looked like he was about to cry. The three of them, including me, were in awful condition. Their clothes were soaked with blood, their faces were ridiculously swollen, and they all had a number of chipped teeth. The person who'd done this was probably me. There was the 3 DQNs that beat me up, and after that happened, they'd had their torsos torn apart and died. Once again, the man in the Darth Spider costume was there, standing at the end of where we were walking. The guy who was lending me his shoulder shouted at Darth Spider, but with his face as it was, any impact it could have had was pretty much halved. So he turned the tables on you and you ran away. Lame. Just give us the money already. Hand it over. Money? Don't play dumb with us. You said it yourself, asshole. You said you paid us if we scared the Ishijo shitless. One of them grabbed Darth Spider, holding him by the collar. He lifted him up and then hit his black helmet with his hand. You had us go through some pretty fucked up shit. Take off the mask. Take off the fucking mask. He forced the helmet off. I had already predicted the face that would be under it, and of course, there he was, Mamoru Chiba, looking completely unfazed. He was Hazuki Shino's accomplice, so there was another culprit behind the gym. Suo ran to his knee deep into the stomach of the man grabbing him. His agile movement set him far apart from the reckless violence of the DQNs. Well, since I'm all done with you three... The ground shook slightly. What was that? Behind Suo, there was a presence, hiding in the darkness, deep within the narrow alley. Something was there, rumbling with an eerie growl, and from what I could tell, it wasn't normal size. Even though we couldn't see it, the fierce bloodlust given off by that monster made our hearts seize up. Eventually, with footsteps that sounded like the very ground itself was rumbling, it showed itself, a literal, real-life monster. It was so unbelievably grotesque, nothing else like it existed on this earth. Its brown, slimy skin glistened, and its gigantic head sat wedged between its shoulders. Its scarlet bones shone brightly, its mouth tore open on both sides, and its wrists were as thick as giant logs. And the bipedal monster came up beside Suo, and opened its gaping maw wide as it could be. Its rows of sharp fangs glinted, reflecting the burning glare of streetlights. It was like a low, dull growl, and yet it was more terrifying than anything I had ever heard. No beast could have ever hoped to compare. A roar with such ferocity, even the very souls of all who heard it would tremble. What is that? Okay, so I'm really into Spark Wars. Suo was the only one who didn't seem bothered by the monster's appearance. On the contrary, he touched the monster's leg in blatant satisfaction, caressing it. This big guy is one of the aliens from it. Another roar. The monster stepped one closer to the frozen still trio. We tried to run, but there was no escape. We screamed for help, but there was no one around for kilometers. An overwhelming difference in power. The difference in potential between our species was too great. We were potential man, and this was realized potential monster. We were helpless when we faced the beast before us. For the first time in our lives, we experienced fear from the deepest depths of our hearts. When somebody is frightened like that, they fall silent, shrink back, and can't move even a single muscle. And so the monster let out a single breath and swung its log-like arms. In an instant, as if they were mere rag dolls, the two of them were torn to shreds. Blood and viscera splattered across the alley, steam rising from the remains. The severed corpses of the two men were then viciously tossed aside, skewering them on the handles of nearby telephone pole.
あとは
And that just leaves you. So his gaze pierced through me, and then I realized he was the one controlling the alien. I told myself this was an illusion, but there was no point. In the face of absolute terror and overwhelming brutality, I simply slumped to the ground and pissed myself. All I could do after that was look up at the daze of the monster, and then my torso was ripped apart. I felt this in a way no other human could possibly experience, and then I stopped breathing. How many times have I died vicariously? 3 times, 1 time, 7 times, 4 times, 2 times, 5 times? Even flesh tasted amazing. It hurt. No more. Darth Spider's outfit was surreal. It had to be a joke. So wait, how many times had I died? Wait, who died? Not me. I wasn't dead. That monster was seriously straight out of a horror movie. But that monster was from Sue said it was from Spark Wars. So what? Human flesh tasted amazing. The bones too. Why was Darth Spider black? Hazuki Shino was sexy, but she was scary. She was crazy. That's what made her sexy. If Darth Spider was made of bones, what was human flesh? How many times have I died in this prank? Or was it a prank? Did we prank Walmart? No, I wasn't dead. I was dead. Death, dead, dead. It was surreal. No more. There were bones. Don't want to die. Black, I died. So kill me. Inside the rucksack Sua wore on his back, a port let out a strange mechanical sound. Sua had long since grown accustomed to hearing it. Because of that sound, he had been able to murder the heart and mind of the gigolomaniac Nishijo Takumi. He lifted up a heartfelt prayer in gratitude. No matter what, Sua would have never let Nishijo Takumi get away for what he had done. For the boy had driven Hazuki to suicide. Hazuki was his childhood friend, whom he had lived with ever since she was born. Sua recalled what she told to him many years ago, back when he aspired to become a detective, and she said a nurse.
私、守の子供を産みたい。
Well, she was pretty forward about it. Both of their parents were disciples of the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light, and God and the glorious founder had been in their lives since birth. Sua and Hazuki had both been raised as children of Divine Light, and their betrothal was the will of the glorious founder as well. And so the two of them dutifully obeyed the teachings of the Divine Light, going so far as to offer the life of their child within Hazuki's womb. Even when Hazuki had given her life as a martyr, she was still believed she was doing the right thing. The 7 incidents, colloquially known as Nujin Matters, Sua and Hazuki caused them together. Partway through the incident, Sua had grown quite flustered when a suitor, Bon Yasuji, pointed out all the inconsistencies in the group dive video. The video Sua had uploaded to YouTube had been recorded by projecting his memories. However, it had been a few days since the incident at this time, so his memories had gone far less clear. He had not remembered the exact details of the scene, but since the video would not have been realistic without them, he expressly gone to Cornelius' tower to review the photos hanging in the lobby. As a result, the video had been indeed made more realistic, but he failed to choose the correct picture. He had no reason to suspect that something so strikingly different would look between the tower's completion and present. However, thanks to the political influence of the glorious founder, all that had been suppressed. It would be unwise to underestimate the power of the Cosmic Church of Divine Light's glorious founder. He had made many connections within the government, and he had even managed to weave several of his followers into management positions at the Metropolitan Police. No matter how much those like Bond cried out for justice, the natural conclusion to come to was that they would never be able to do a thing to harm him. Sua's position as a detective, Hazuki's position as a nurse. The support coming from the pressure the glorious founder placed on the police and the media. The NOAA system terminals provided by Nozomi Technology. Utilizing all these tools, Sua and Hazuki had been focused solely on killing. As for the reason they'd gone to such lengths to continue killing people, it had been for the sake of breaking Nishijo Takumi. After they forced him to awaken as a Gigalomaniac, they would kidnap him and harvest his CODE sample. Alternatively, by breaking the delusionary Takumi Nishijo, they would lure out the real one, capture him, and harvest his code sample. As long as it was Nishino Takumi, it made no difference if he was real or a copy. That was why Suwa had acted as Nishijo Takumi, using a wheelchair in his impersonation attempt. It had all been foretold by a divine prophecy bestowed upon Suwa and Hazuki, one they had to fulfill no matter what sacrifices they would have to make during its course. And now, after sacrificing Hazuki, they had been the last to overcome the trials given to them by God. The face of the woman who had loved him, the face of the one whom he had loved in return, rose in Suwa's mind. He gritted his teeth in intense sadness, bearing the utmost grief. He bathed in sorrow. Suwa approached Nishijo Takumi, whose mind he had just slaughtered. At the edge of the platform, Sanaue cradled her head of her father, whom she herself had decapitated. She had fallen on her knees long ago, and now she sat alone atop the train tracks. Her chest dyed a deep crimson from her father's blood. She laughed. Drool slovenly seeped out of her mouth. Her eyes were unfocused. Suwa, now having composed himself, glanced at the girl. She's already long gone, he muttered to himself in his head. In any case, her usefulness had expired, and she felt no need to kill her. From the Gigalomaniacs who had been gathered in Tokyo for Project Noah, there were still 2 whose code samples had yet to be harvested. This number included Kusunoki Yua, for she was an irregularity who had never been suspected of being a Gigalomaniac. The remaining targets were Nishino Takumi and Orihaza Kozue. It had to be the infallible guidance of the Divine Light that the 2 of them had fallen right into Suwa's hands, in the same location even. He had now received total proof that his actions had always been proper and just. For this, he held endless gratitude toward heaven and the glorious founder. Upon reaching Takumi, he dropped to his knees, grabbed the limp boy's upper arms, and attempted to forcefully pull him to his feet. But Takumi had already gone hollow. He was no longer capable of standing. His heart and mind had perished completely. Serves him right. With a snort, Suwa began to walk away, dragging Takumi by the arms along with him. Kozupi was shouting something. Sounded painful, like she was hurting. Maybe having fun? I blinked my eyes. Where's Kozupi? She was hanging from some weird cross art. Rimi was at her feet. She was laying on the ground, tied up round and round. Kozupi was weird. Her clothes were torn a lot. They were in pieces, and they were creepy crawling. Creepy crawling? What was? Her shell, her skin, her cheeks and her neck and her arms and around her belly button and her thighs and creepy crawlies, squishy wishy. Lots of thingies were wriggling under Kozue's skin. Not 1, 10 thingies, 20 thingies, maybe 30 thingies? I think they're parasites, yucky little caterpillars. Kozue shakes her head around. Her eyes went everywhere, lots of dribbly drool, drips dribble. Her face looked super stupid, looked funny, like she was wearing a thingy on her head. There are lots of cords coming out of it, like a toy, a Super Duper Power Rangers toy set or something. Is there something, Sig, Nashijo Takumi? An old guy I'd never seen before. Who? Ah, I see. So you unsynchronized with Kozue Harihara's Lucin. You're quite a curious specimen, aren't you? There is no need to show such flusser. I'll make sure to tire you out plenty after her. Who's next, me? I didn't want that. Who's next, me? No, I didn't want that. Who's next, me? No, I didn't want that. I didn't want any suffering. I didn't want any pain.
タク、あなたなら止められる。今なら止められる。あなたなら。
My wrist should have been tied behind my back, but suddenly, as if a will of its own, the cord loosened and fell to the floor. Tied up and lying on the ground, Rimi just turned her gaze to me. Her eyes pleaded with me. A gigantic device sat in the center of the dome-shaped room, giving off an eerie hum. That is Noah 2. Destroy it. Rimi's eyes asked me of this. A tall, intellectual-looking man, Norose, had his back turned to me, and he was watching Kozue's torture with an earnest look on his face. He hadn't noticed me moving. There was no one around, not even Suwa. I could do it now. I was the only one who could, but I was scared. What if Norase caught me? What if I failed? What if these things... My body began to tremble. There was something seriously wrong with this game, forcing the fate of the world onto someone like me. But I had to do it. That realization and resolve came to me with surprising ease. Maybe I had grown stronger. Yeah, that was it. I was strong. I was super strong now. I stood up slowly. Norase hadn't noticed. For a final boss, he was a total dumbass. It was fun. Was it that fun watching Kozue suffer? Raw disgust flowed through me. I gritted my teeth. Come forth, D-Sword. Ripples appeared in the open air, and a blue light burst forth. I grasped it. I felt it. Neither cold nor hot. Neither hard nor soft. I drew it from the Daidaxi, and a long, grand sword settled in my hand. What? He finally noticed me, but it was too late. I real booted my D-Sword. I sent particles flying into everyone's dead spots. I'd done it completely unconsciously. The method that I used, or how it worked, didn't matter to me. I just had a delusion and it had come to be. I gripped the hilt of my D-Sword with both hands. Its glow transformed from blue to red. Your heart and mind should have been annihilated! Norase stared at me in disbelief. He was shrinking back. I'd won. He lost. I grinned from ear to ear, raised my sword, and formed a delusion. This was a sword of light. It possessed incredible power. Power to cut through the very air itself. If I called forth all of its power and swung the blade, I could reduce anything on this earth to rubble. Take this! I couldn't come up with the name for my special attack right on the spot, so I just gave up shouting something out. Besides, this wasn't shown in manga. Ah! I took the power I'd stored in my D-Sword through my delusions and released it all on Noah 2. Two months later. The winter sky was barely blue. By an exchange, unlike the summer sky, it was cool, crisp, and carried an almost translucent aura. It was morning. A few minutes ago, my eyes had opened to the sound of my alarm clock. And now, as I brushed my teeth, my gaze shifted up toward the sky. It had been 2 months since that insanity. Shibuya was still in the midst of its reconstruction efforts. Ever since the new year had first kicked off, little by little, Shibuya had slowly been returning to its noisy, gaudy-ass self. A voice called my name. When I turned around, I saw Rimi making her way up the stairs. I hadn't seen her since her school uniform since that day. Rimi gave me a big smile and a salute-like pose. Bishi! Good morning! Let's get some breakfast whipped up for you. Rimi was holding a bag from the convenience store. Inside were some eggs, milk, and white bread. Standing in front of the sink, she carefully started making preparations. For the past 2 months, Rimi had come to a point, my base, pretty much every morning to cook me breakfast. Apparently she hadn't done much cooking before she'd met me, so this doubled as practice for her. I wanted to tell her not to use me as her guinea pig, but just being able to eat a girl's home cooking at all made me incredibly happy. So I just bit my tongue and put up with it. School starts up again today. You excited? Ever since the earthquake, Suimei Academy had been closed down, but it was finally reopening today. I planned to use this opportunity to leave behind my semi-shut-in lifestyle. Started to by seriously attending school. You know, just the thought makes me pretty happy. Going to school with you again, I mean. As she said that, Rimi cracked open an egg. As one would expect, it wasn't exactly feasible to eat outside right in the middle of winter. You freeze your ass off. To avoid that, Rimi carried 2 servings of the toast and scrambled eggs she'd made for us, and then set them down on the small table beside each other. Once her hands were free, the 2 of us sat down next to each other on the sofa. Well, dig in!
いただきます。
Thanks. After putting my hands together, I reached for the butter sitting at the edge of the table. However, Rimi had done the same thing at almost the same time, and our fingertips brushed up against the top of the container of butter. What a rom-com ass plot point. Smiling wryly at that in my head, my eyes soon met those of Rimi, who was smiling extremely close to me, and my heart began to pound. Rimi didn't take her eyes off me, nor did she pull back her hand. Both of us had gone rigid, staring at each other as our hearts touched. Our fingers touched. Rimi intertwined her fingers with my own. Her eyes softly closed, and then she ever so slightly lifted her face. Naturally, I held Rimi's hand in return, and I slowly neared her lips.
何イチャついてんの？
あ
Flustered, I jumped away from Rimi. When I looked at my door, I saw Nanami standing there. I had had no idea when she'd shown up. All I knew was that her arms were crossed, and she had a pretty exasperated look on her face.
ナナミ
Nanami, don't do stuff like that. You're gonna give me a heart attack. Come on, Nanami, I know this is delusion, but like, you're really sitting here playing defense? Fuck you. Well, I see you and Rimi-san are getting along.
焼けちゃうな。
Makes me kinda jealous.
ねえねえ。
Real talk though, I'm curious, how far have you two gone? What do you mean, how far?
またまた。
There you go again. Quit playing dumb and just tell me already, Rimi-san. Seemed like Nanami had selected Rimi as her next target. Barging into my room, she pulled aside my computer chair and sat down in front of Rimi.
キスは当然してる。
Obviously, you two have kissed, but what about beyond that? Hey, stop teasing me.
いいじゃん。
Oh, come on, you know you love it. Now tell me. Not telling.
じゃあおに。
Well, fine. You tell me, big bro. How far? I fucking sound so stupid. I'm not telling you. Besides, we haven't even kissed yet. Why did you have to remind me? God, I'm such an idiot. I've had so many chances before now, I hate myself. At this rate, it felt like I'd never actually lose my very card. Starting to get depressed at how much of a loser like I was, I gulped down some milk. You never know, Rimi-san. If you take it too slow, I might just...
奪っちゃうかな。
Practically a gallon of milk spurted from my mouth.
おに来たな。
Ew, that's nasty.
お前
What, you just...
冗談
I was just kidding. Don't be so uptight. Whew, could we please stop trying to give me a heart attack? Can we cut back to Noah too? Because it's clear that he didn't break it. Side by side, the 3 of us walked to school together. Rimi was humming that Phantasm song again. Passing through the center of Shoto Park, we took my usual shortcut. You could still see a few traces of the earthquake around the park. For example, part of the stone wall circling the pond was still broken, even though it was way better off than the rest of Shibuya compared to what the sad state was of it at the center.
おはようございます。
Good morning. Yua was sitting on the bench, turning towards us. She put on a gentle smile and bowed her
あ
head.
の、
Nishijo-kun,
昨日
I had a lot of fun yesterday.
楽しかったです。昨日
Yesterday?
ユアと一緒に
You and I went shopping together in Akihabara.
に行ったんだ。
あ、わかった。
Oh, I see. You went to buy dolls.
ユアと言えよ。
They're figures, not dolls. Well, it was true that we'd gone to buy figures.
新しいセーラちゃん。
The moment I got home, I put my brand new Seta-chan on display in my room.
私も行きたかった。
Aw, I wish I could have gone. What? Remy, are you interested in
フィギュアに
figures?
興味あるの
When I asked that, Remy gave a slightly sheepish smile. Well, it's more like...
タクの好きなもの
I wanted like the stuff you like, Taku.
わ
Whoa, talk about bold.
あだったら
Alright then, you can come along next time. Huh? Really? Thanks a bunch! You and Remy had really hit it off. You and Nanami's classes were both in different buildings, so we said our goodbyes at the school entrance. As I changed my indoor shoes, someone came up from behind me and blew into my ear, I say. I shuddered, goosebumps springing all over me, blew away, and jumped around. There stood Ayase, wearing a narrow smile.
おはよう
Good morning, Taku.
あ
Oh, morning.
おはよう
Morning, Aya-chan.
あやち
Aya-chan. Ayase tilted her head when she heard Remy call her
ゃん
that.
初めてよ
I have never been. That is the first time someone has called me that.
悪くないわ
I do not mind it.
でしょ
Glad you like it.
ファンタズムのライブ
Over Moro, there will be a Phantasm concert. She abruptly changed the subject. Unsurprisingly, Ayase was hard to get a read on as ever. If you would like to come to it.
僕に言ってるの
Is that directed at me?
巧みに言ってるの
I am indeed talking to you, Takumi.
それと
And to Remy. Whoa, really? I'm going 100%! Phantasm had broken up a while back, but I'd heard they'd had a sudden revival after the new year started up. I didn't know where the change of heart came from, but I did know was that I wanted to hear more Ayase singing.
でも
But
巧み
I will not give you Takumi. I didn't really know what was up with the butt, but Ayase reached out softly and caressed my cheek, as if she was showing Remy her place. See you later, Takumi. With a bewitching smile, she climbed the stairs in front of us. In a daze, I watched her without the faintest clue of what had just happened.
タク
Taku,
鼻の下
you're
伸び
drooling.
え
Huh? I quickly shot up a hand in my mouth. It says gullible on the ceiling. When we reached the outside of our classroom, Takumi-san! Kozue came from racing down the hallway, her smile stretching from ear to ear. But before she could make it to us, she suddenly crashed into a boy coming out of the blast room and landed flat on her butt. Her eyes swimming with tears, she apologized to the boy, then finally managed to get over to us. Good morning!
怪我はない
Are you okay? You know you shouldn't run in the halls, Kozupi. Anya? Kozupi started fidgeting. She looked at me from below. Well, it was because I wanted to tell Takumi-san something super duper fast.
教えるって
Yes, that's what we're going with. What did you want to tell me? Look! Kozupi pointed in the direction she had just come running from. When I looked closer, I saw Senna standing there leaning against the wall. Her arms were crossed and she had a fairly sullen expression crossed on her face.
セナさん
Senna's out of the hospital! Senna had been hospitalized for over the past 2 months. It was a psychological attack had put her out of commission for a while. Senna raised her head and then slowly began making her way toward us. She was just as scary as ever. She always carried a certain aura, one that gave off the impression she would suddenly slap you if you hadn't done anything wrong. I had gone to visit Senna in the hospital twice a week, but no matter how many times I tried to make conversation, she'd said no much as a single word. The awkwardness had been torture. Could it be that she just hated me that much? I didn't really know how to handle her. A fierce tension hung in the air between us. Then again, it would have been more accurate to say that only I was freaked out. She was fine. So, when school's over today, let's go celebrate Senna-san getting out of the hospital. It's so inconsistent. Kozupi was the only one showing any sort of enthusiasm. Well, I mean, with a party this kind of atmosphere, it would be pretty shitty.
おい西条
Nishijo. That's when Senna finally opened her back. I shrank back, refusing to meet her eyes. Here. Senna held out something to me. It was a small stick with the word written and went on it. Huh? Woo, it's a Renin Garegaru-kun sticky stick. Bewildered, I accepted it. Senna looked the other way.
お前に
I have something I want to tell you.
なんでしょ
What is it? Was it just my imagination, or had Senna's cheeks turned pink?
お前
I
のこ
like
とが
you.
Huh?
What?
おぴ
Her sudden confession left not just me, but Rimi and Kozupi all speechless. For a moment, I thought she was just teasing me, but Senna wasn't the type of character to make those kinds of jokes. Which meant, are you serious?
何度も
When you came to visit me all those times, it made me happy.
言わせる
Don't make me say it, you idiot! She had gone all dare, and then straight back to Soon mode all on her own. Wait, go back a little. This is all way too sudden. What? Oh, that was shitty. What? Way behind schedule, Rimi let out a cry in surprise. Kozue, still processing, had her eyes wide open.
なんだ先ほど
Wait, Sakihara, don't you have an objection? Yeah, lots. That, whatever, you just can't. Get that thumbnail. Huh? Huh? Rimi and Kozupi were utterly baffled, but the most bewildered of them all was me. I would have never suspected something so insane. Without any idea of how the hell I was supposed to react, I gazed up at this clear sky outside the window. Somehow, even though the semester had only just started, it was already quite the eventful day. I wondered, will every day be like this from now on? Will these fun, peaceful times go on forever? I sure hope so. I wished for it from the bottom of my heart. Suddenly, I saw the reflection of my face in the window. And the reflection I saw wasn't me because it was covered in wrinkles. Well, there it is. Color and light disappeared. I was hugging my knees. Close to me in his face dyed pitch black. In front of my eyes was the only light source around. It was like a monitor, it was like a window, it was like a picture frame. Inside it, Rimi, Senna, and Kozue were happily chatting about something, but I couldn't hear their voices. I stared at it, my emotions were completely inactive, or maybe my heart was simply dead. Then I realized I had been watching my own delusions, a 2D world where I escaped into. A perfect delusion. How long had it been all a delusion?
最初からですよ
From the very beginning. I looked behind me, where Norase stood tall. But with how dark it was, I could only see his feet.
君に
Suakun annihilated your heart and mind, did he not? So, ever since he'd done that, I'd been in delusion the entire
君の
time.
コードサンプルを
I was able to harvest your code sample. Now that you've served your purpose, you're free to turn to Redust whenever you want.
あ
I felt nothing. My heart was dead after all, so I shouldn't have felt anything. And yet, a single tear trickled down my cheek. In the end, I'd gone right back to being a loser. I'd run away from the painful
最
reality.
後に幸せ
How
に
wonderful is it
なれて
that you may see a pleasant
よ
dream
か
in
った
the
で
end.
すね
Even to the very end, I'd been a completely worthless human being. I'm sorry, Rimi. I apologize, but I didn't really understand why I had to anymore. I didn't feel any guilt. So I decided to return to my delusion from earlier. Hopefully someone would kill me one of these days. So until then, I wanted to fully immerse myself in the happiness that came from the world I had escaped to. When had the rain begun to fall? Or perhaps this rain had been bond to the world by Noah too. The gaze rained down from the sky. The stare pierced through the thick pitch-black rain clouds and poured down on me like rain. It's too late for him now. I whispered in my heart to the owner of the gaze. I didn't feel the chill of the rain. Instead, the droplets on my cheek felt warm to me. It was the first time I'd ever thought of rain as being warm. Perhaps it was the fault of the spine-chilling cold enveloping the dome where Noah 2 was. Reflected in my eyes was a ruined city. Reflected in my eyes was despair. Reflected in my eyes was death. Reflected in my eyes was nothingness. Not a soul was here. Not a soul was moving. Not a soul was left alive. The only thing I could hear was the sound of the rain continuing to pour. The ark had already been set into motion. We had been unable to stop it, and now the future held nothing but despair. At this rate, everything, both the living and the dead, would it all be gently embraced and washed away? I heard him whisper all of this inside his heart. His heart, so beautiful. I walked to the figure lying limp in the rubble. It was my fault he had ended up like this. If I had done better, he wouldn't have gotten involved at all. Feelings of guilt tortured me. I blamed myself. Forgive me. I'll give you peace now. How had he been born was far too sad. How he was going to die was far too sad. He was so timid, so fragile. It was like it was made of glass. Glass so pure it shattered its owner to pieces. At the very least, I didn't want him to suffer in the end. Lying on the ground, he looked up at me with vacant eyes. I pushed aside my emotions. Though I was looking at him, I tried to distance myself in an attempt to stave off my tears. If you and I were the only ones left in the world, if we stared into each other's eyes like this for all eternity, would my world be reduced to what's reflected in your eyes? Would your world be reduced to what's reflected in my eyes? The only thing reflected in my eyes was him. The only thing reflected in his eyes was me. When I thought of it that way, the world immediately seemed so much smaller. At least, in the time you have left, I will become your world. Whether the world is painful, whether the world is agonizing, or whether the world is sorrowful, I'll make it so you no longer have to see it anymore. Hey. Gathering my resolve, I let out a whisper. Lowering my head, I spread my arms wide, almost as if I was preparing to take off, to soar above the rain clouds. As if I was trying to catch all the falling rain.
あなたを見つめる妄想。殺してあげる。
Feathers of light danced about. They served as a gift handed down from the sky, a gift for his funeral. I slowly knelt to the ground right before his collapsed body. I'll cry if I see your eyes. I'm sorry, I can't look at them. I softly embraced his head in my arms. His body was devoid of all strength, as if he was fully prepared for death.
辛いよね。ごめん。ごめんね。今、楽にしてあげるからね。
His demeanor told me that I wasn't just doing this for my own sake. He was a very peaceful smile on his face. But that smile was so sad. Even though I'd held it in all this time, tears began to well up. I'd held them back because I didn't ever want him to see those tears. He'd finally found peace. And I didn't want to worry him any further. I kissed him on the lips. They were cold, desiccated, and laden with seemingly endless sorrow. And yet when I kissed him, his trembling ceased. I was overjoyed to know that my warmth was of some use to him. If I drew back from his lips, he would see my teary face. If I drew back from his lips, I would want to kiss him again. If I drew back from his lips, I would be struck with such selfish feelings I wouldn't be able to kill him anymore. My lips still enveloping his, I sank my D sword into his chest. The sensation of it tearing through his skin, boring into his flesh, weaving through his bones, and slowly sinking through the center of his body. It all passed through the sword and into my hands. I'm so sorry. You can sleep for as long as you want to now. Goodbye. Was the sky blurring because of the rain? Because of my tears? His body was enveloped by countless particles of light, and as he slowly began to disappear, I held him in my arms. I reached my hand toward the sky. Somebody, please tell me. Just where could that sky of ours have gone? Not impactful enough. Next route.